Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from Quantum Listing, and welcome to our webinar. And today we have a very special guest, my longtime friend, Gordon Platt. Gordon's a very interesting guy. Uh, he's a Harvard-educated attorney, an Emmy Award-winning former investigative journalist for ABC News, and a strategic consultant. His legal practice focuses on cybersecurity, privacy, anti-fraud, and investigations, as well as on trusts and estates. He's a member of the bar and licensed to practice in New York and Massachusetts. Gordon launched his practice in 2020 to work with individuals and companies, and he focuses on enabling them to thrive in the face of challenges posed by a rapidly changing world economy. He combines both research skills gained as an investigative journalist and problem-solving expertise developed as a communications consultant with his background and experience as an attorney. Gordon's practice is informed by an extensive network of personal contacts and experts developed over the course of almost 3 decades in the field, and he has created an international network of attorneys and investigators in over 20 countries. As a producer for ABC News, based in New York and Washington, D.C., Gordon received Emmy and Columbia DuPont Awards, and as an independent producer and director was the recipient of a Silver Gavel from the American Bar Association for his coverage of corrupt law enforcement in Texas. His investigative work in Texas was a significant factor in the pardoning of 35 people wrongly convicted as the result of a corrupt police investigation. Other work includes extensive investigations of Iraqi arms and nuclear procurement networks, money laundering, and international and domestic terrorism. His documentary work has been featured on Discovery, the History Channel, Court TV, and on many other outlets. Gordon was also the founder of Gotham Media, a media production company and communications consulting firm. He has organized events around the United States and in London on topics including anti-money laundering, fraud, and anti-terrorism financing. Gordon received his JD from Harvard Law School. He's a graduate of Dartmouth College, summa cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, and high honors, where he majored in Russian and government, and received a Reynolds Fellowship for postgraduate study as well as the Woodbury Law Prize. He received the MSc in Russian History and Politics from the London School of Economics, where he was a recipient of the Leonard Shapiro Scholarship. Gordon lives with his family and 2 large dogs in Chappaqua, New York, and in his spare time he enjoys running and giving unsolicited advice to his 3 sons. Well, welcome, Gordon. Thank you for being here today and offering to share your expertise on cyber risks, data security, and real estate. These are hot topics, and we're glad that you're here to share your knowledge with us.
Well, David, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to see you and be with you. And the main thing that my bio, which you read the extended version of, makes clear is how old I am. So that's so with that in mind, I want to thank everybody for downloading or tuning into this presentation or discussion, as it may be. And it's a topic that is extremely timely, that I'm very passionate about, and that you all should be passionate about. Just in the news this morning, there was a report of the head of the NSA, and Army General Paul Nakasone, saying that ransomware, which we will get to, which is a specific type of cyber attack, will be unfortunately with us for the foreseeable future. And the NSC, there's the U.S. Cybersecurity Force has already initiated a surge against cybersecurity, against ransomware, much as they did against the Taliban or ISIS in the Middle East. And it's as deserving of a surge in attention and forces, because it's really one of the biggest problems facing business leaders today. So if you want to go to the first slide, and you're controlling it, you have the controls. There are just some stats that indicate how huge a problem this is for business and the economy. I will.
Hold on a second. And this. All right. I think I got it.
And oh, okay. There you are. Yep. You just need to. Great. And I'll say to David and all of you out there that if you want to get a copy of the deck, which we won't really stick to by the letter, to look at it later, you can either get in touch with him or get in touch with me, and be happy to send it to you. So just to run through a couple of these things, the cost of ransomware damage in 2021, $20 billion, is 57 times more than the cost in 2015. And then the second one is very telling. The global annual cost of cybercrime will reach $6 trillion, that's trillion with a T, by the end of 2021, and will increase to, is estimated to 10.5 trillion by 2025. So that is just some indication of how huge a problem this is and is getting to be, and why we all need to pay attention to it. If you can flip to the next slide, you will just get a visual sense of the cybercrime trend crime lines. They vary seasonally a little bit, but you'll see in green 2021 compared to 2020, and it's the months that we have available so far. It's already significantly ahead of where it was last year, and the COVID quarantine has made it a real growth business, since one of the ways that cyber criminals get into systems is through your laptops or home computers, and that don't normally have the safeguards that you would have at work, and they're worming basically from your home into your servers at your offices. So we'll get to that security issue, but it's just a way of saying that it's made it incredibly a much bigger problem than it was before COVID. And then to speak specifically about real estate, I mean, maybe some of you will say, well, real estate isn't, we don't have, it's not medical field, it's not financial. Why would it be a target? And it has been a target. There is personal information that many of you keep on online. And if you go to the next slide, David, it'll show you some recent headlines about Element being breached, and Marcus and Millichap. And thirdly, why hackers love smart buildings, because they can hack into all of the devices that are on the building's network. So I should also say that you don't need to be a Douglas Elliman to worry about a data breach. They go after smaller fish too. One of the reasons that they do that is that it's easier to break into a smaller system. They figured they don't have a smaller company or a brokerage wouldn't have the resources to really secure their network. And if they infiltrate a smaller system, they can use that system to break into a larger system, sort of like a Trojan horse. And that's what the technique is actually called, Trojan horse, because if you're at a local brokerage or you are in email contact with a larger operation and your system is infected, that can be used as entree into the larger system. So, and then you could be liable. You could have some liability as a smaller operator. So, and David, feel free to obviously break in with any questions. We don't, as I said, we don't have to stick with this
So, to what extent,
presentation.
and you may not know the answer to, how much of it is going after data and how much of it is ransomware attack?
So first, I will tell you what ransomware is, just so we can be, clear on that as a term. It is a type of malware, which is basically a bug or an infection, a virus. I'm sorry about this. Should shut off these texts. But I guess probably just ignore them for now if we can. A type of infection that takes over your network, and basically it encrypts your network so that you don't have any use of it. It's all, you don't have a way to unencrypt it. And what the cyber criminals will do is they hold it ransom. They say you must pay us X amount and we will provide the key, decryption key to you. And if you don't do that, we will eliminate the data. And then secondly, we may, the actors may make it public, personal data of employees, clients, and partners, others. And recently what they've been doing is actually holding an auction for the data so that people who are in the business of identity theft and those types of activities can make use of it. So ransomware is probably the biggest threat out there now in the world of cyber attacks. So that is basically taking your data and providing and taking it totally away from you. You don't have access to it, and whatever business that you conduct online at all, everything from emails to your website to data that you have stored, you don't have access to any of it. It's as if we're in the pre-computer days. So I don't know if that totally answered your question, but
I mean, how much, when people are now working at home or working at home some days and the office other days, how much more vulnerable are people who are working from home than when they're in their office environment?
yeah, that's a great question. Well, it depends. The office environment will depend on what safeguards the company has set up on their network, and most likely it's going to be better than the safeguards that you have set up at home. So whenever you're logging on to from home to your network at work, that provides a vulnerability, a weak point for hackers to be able to break into the system. Or if you provide or you open an unsolicited email, click on a link that turns out to be infected, your computer can be infected, and then you can pass that computer on to your work system. If you're working at home, it's really up to two people. One, it's up to your office to take care that they're protected, and that also that they put the protocols into place so that when you log on from home, that your home is protected in a way that it won't pass on any viruses to the office. But it's really something that needs to be centralized and organized from your office. Even when you're working at home, they need to put in processes and protocols on both ends.
There used to be a bromide that people with Macs didn't have to worry about, viruses and things like that because people just wanted to go after Windows operating system computers. Is that still true, or was it ever true?
By and large, the Mac system is a more contained system, more difficult to access from the outside. Windows is easier. There traditionally have been more vulnerabilities uh, to break into. It's more open. That said, Macs are still vulnerable. You need to take care, but by and large, it is a little bit more difficult to access a Mac.
Okay. And maybe a little later we'll ask you what we should be doing to protect ourselves. But maybe
Yeah, let's take a look at the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so this is just some numbers about the costs of what a data breach can cost. It's quite, as you can see, it's quite a bit, can be quite a bit, and it's in addition to having possibly to restore your own systems, possibly having to pay a ransom. There's the cost involved of your business being offline for whatever number of days or weeks that may turn into. It depends on the nature of the business. Some are more internet intensive than others. If you're doing a lot of work or business online, it can be much more expensive. If you're using online tools basically just to communicate and to keep records that you can update later, it's not as much. But one of the things that you should actually figure out in advance is how long you could afford to stay offline, or how much it would cost you per day. And we'll get in, that's one of the we'll play into the safeguards that we'll talk about a little bit later, but that's a good exercise just to figure out in terms of how much it could cost you if you are infected. And then we'll go to the next slide.
All right.
Okay, these are some key trends for this year. Basically, we're seeing cyber attacks. The perpetrators are gaining more sophistication and maturity. They're no longer just kids testing out their capabilities. By and large, there's some states that such as Korea, China, Russia, we'll get into that are doing it. Organized crime is into it. The evolving threat landscape. They are being more successful in getting all types of information, not just credit card information, and disrupting businesses as opposed to just taking the data and running. Let's see, regulatory obligations, that's a big deal, which we'll get into in a little bit. There, states and regulatory agencies are becoming more aware of what's going on and providing safeguards, but that means that there are, on the corporate side, obligations that you have to adhere to, and obligations and laws that you need to abide by. Let's see, spend reduction, that means that some companies are just getting tired of hearing all this news about cyber and reputational risk, and they're just spending less because they don't see it happening to them. So they said, well, why should we spend? It's not obviously not a profit center, so they're just cutting back in some cases where they should actually be doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, we can get on to the next one now. So cyber adversaries, as I mentioned, there are three types: nation states, criminal organizations and gangs, and interestingly, cybercrime as a service, which means that if someone wants to break into your system but doesn't have the technical chops to do it, they can basically hire someone to do it on their behalf, one of these organizations or gangs. And they will provide a percentage of the take, or they will just basically license the software, the malware from them, and break in that way. So it's your usual players, who are these criminal organizations or nation states, aren't the only players anymore. Anybody can get into it and become a cyber criminal these days. It's equal opportunity crime.
Let me ask you this, Gordon. I mean, and when you hear about sort of domestic homicides, a lot of them are done by people who know the victim. Uh, are you seeing the same thing in cyber crime, where a certain percentage of them are disgruntled ex-boyfriends or girlfriends or husbands or wives or family members, or is it mostly by anonymous third parties?
Well, there is a problem, and I should have included it here. It's sometimes employees or ex-employees, not so much their relatives, but people who have access to the system, who want to make a quick buck, basically, and they already have the credentials to be able to get into the system without breaking it. And then something that's called phishing, is also called social engineering, is a way that adversaries break into your system in a fairly low-tech way. They will send an email or some sort of communication to an employee, basically, and it's gotten very sophisticated. So they may send an email saying that your bank has noticed unusual activity, and that you need to email them right away, or click on this link to fill out this form. And then when you click on the form, you're not actually going to the bank. You're going to this website that's been set up by the criminals. And the sophistication aspect of it is that they will sometimes trace you or tail you online for a while before launching the attack. So as an individual, when they get in touch with you, they may know what your bank is. They may know where you have accounts or your credit cards, or that you have a relative in Europe or something like that. And so it'll seem very credible to an individual, and even down to what the stationery that they're sending, the template, looks like your local bank, and there are no spelling mistakes, which used to be the typical giveaway. It looks totally convincing. And so unknowingly, employees are giving access to these groups in a very unknowing way. And so education is a large part of it. Companies really need to educate their employees on what to look for and what to avoid, and what we call cyber hygiene, what the proper way to act online really is to avoid these attacks.
If I use say a Google Chrome incognito browser, am I any safer than if I'm using the standard Chrome browser, if I'm doing my online banking, for instance? I just keep knowing what I'm doing with my online banking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit better, but it's not really secure. It's not really as secure as it should be. And what I recommend to people is, if they're doing, if you're contacted by your bank, I never respond via the links or emails that they've sent. I always would then get the email and call the bank or credit card company and just confirm that they sent something to me. And you call the number that I have, obviously, and my record's not the number on the communication. So incognito be a little bit safer, but I wouldn't depend on it.
Got it. All right. Shall we move on? Or
yes, let's move on.
okay.
Okay, this is really just what we were talking about. Attack sources. So 48% of malicious email attachments, that's the way that people often get in. They'll send you something, they'll say, please open this document or whatever it may be, and you'll do that, and that'll download not only the document, or maybe not even the document, but the virus. 34% of the data breaches involved external actors. That means these nation states or groups. So that means quite a lot of them are internal. And 65%, which is a very large percentage of the groups, used phishing, which we were just describing as trying to get information from employees as a way in. Oh, okay. So a question here: is this different from when you get a Facebook message from a person you know, but it's not them? That is actually another technique that they can get into your computer through these Facebook messages, which come up, and often it'll be a outreach from someone asking you to accept their friend request, but it's not really them. And a good way to think about that is, at least personally, I often get those friend requests from people I'm already friends with on Facebook. So there would be no reason for me to click it again. But people do, and that's pretty common. I mean, I get those probably a few times a month, I'd say.
It seems to have a part with senior citizens as well.
Yeah, senior citizens for sure. Yeah, that's a huge thing, and they will, yeah, I mean, to the degree that they'll sometimes even call you up. So one of these cyber actors will call you up and then walk you through the steps that you need to take on your computer to transfer money. So, a lot more elderly people sometimes are not as adept at using their computers. So these guys, criminals, are very accommodating. They'll get on the phone and tell you how to do it step by step. And that's proven to be really effective, unfortunately. Okay, should we go to the next one?
You got it.
Okay, well, we can skip over this one because this is phishing that we talked about. And I think the next one is going to be ransomware, which we already talked about. So types of, and this just lists the various types of cyber attacks that exist out there. Some of which are you actively download through links, responding to emails, etc. Other types are when actors are taking advantage of vulnerabilities in the software. We were talking a little bit about that with Microsoft in particular. It's particularly important that when you get an update to a system, whether it's Microsoft Office, whether it's if you're on WordPress, and it says there's a new version, a new edition, that you definitely want to download that, because that means that there are vulnerabilities that have been discovered in the system, and that the new versions that they have fix those. And if you don't fix it, it leaves open a way in. And actually recently, it turns out that there's been a spate of invasions or taking place after these emails or messages are sent, because the makes it very easy for not that sophisticated hackers to access your system, because it basically tells them what the vulnerability is. They don't even have to discover it. And there's usually that lag time between when the message is sent out and when you update your system. So they know what it is. You haven't updated it yet. A great opportunity for them to break into it. So as soon as you get those messages, you should really update your platform, whatever it is.
Do you recommend auto update for this type of stuff also, or is that?
Yeah, auto update. Yes, if that's available, that'll do it. You want to make sure it actually, happens.
Yeah. What is a man-in-the-middle attack or a drive-by?
Man-in-the-middle attack basically means that you're in the that it's when you are between the person in between the hacker and the system, basically. So um, SQL injection means that that code is being injected into your network. Um, and so the other ones we basically discussed.
All right, let's keep on going then. Hang on. Which number is this? Wait, sorry. There we go.
Okay, so we discussed these a little bit, but legacy software, meaning you're using old software, or you've gone back to your default configuration. Sometimes when you're resetting, there's been a problem on your phone. It can also break in through your phone or your laptop, and something's gone wrong, and you set it back to the default settings. That's what that means. Lack of encryption means that the data that you are sending, receiving, or that is on your computer is not being encrypted, meaning it's there in plain language that can be understood by anybody who gets it. Remote access policies mean how the policies of a company to gaining access to the network remotely, so from your house or away from the office. Gaps in policies and procedures means that there may be loopholes in your policies and procedures at the company that you work at aren't all synced up. So there may be little loopholes that people can sort of wiggle through. Lack of network segmentation means that basically once someone gets into the system, they can have access to the entire system. So what's recommended is to split up your network into various parts at your company so that not everybody has access to every part of it. So if there's one part that human resources, for example, is likely to have a lot more personal information in it. So people who are in engineering, for example, shouldn't have access to human resources just because there's no reason for them to access that information. And not that they would, but it's a way that a bad actor can break into this an engineer's system and then easily access the records at human resources. Unpatched security weaknesses are what we just talked about. Unprotected web applications. Another good way for people to break into your network is through these, and you might get these games or sites that advertise pirated videos or access to video streams. Those are ways for these viruses to enter your computer. And the problem with that is if your home computer or your laptop has those applications on it, and then you're accessing your work system, they can break into your work system from these applications that might be on your home computer. Unrestricted user access, account access means that anyone can get into anywhere. We were talking about that a little bit before. And unknown programming bugs, that's a little bit harder to guard against. That just means someone is really has found vulnerabilities either in your system or in software or hardware that you're using and has figured out a way to get in. And people are doing that constantly. It's become a game, basically, very expensive game. So those are the main source of vulnerabilities.
I was almost a victim of a cybercrime. I had sent an email to one of my financial advisors asking for a wire transfer, and I made the mistake of putting in the subject line of my email, I think I wrote wire transfer request. Somebody either on their side or watching. I don't know exactly how it happened, but I got a call from the advisor's office saying, we just got this second request. It looks a little funny. Is this you? And it clearly was not me. And uh, so I would just say that to the extent that any of us are ever asking for anything that is sensitive via email, then be very discriminating as to what information you put in the subject line of your email, because somebody may be watching.
Yeah, and the same would go for texts, and the same would go for actually for content in the emails. You don't want to, by and large, you shouldn't put your wiring information or financial or how to access financial information. So account numbers, routing numbers are general, but account numbers, things like that, into your emails or documents that you're conveying by emails. These days, what a lot of banks and what banks should be doing is unfortunately, you can't access this when you're getting in touch with them. But when they initiate contact with you, increasingly, they're going through a portal and they're encrypting their email to you that you have to unencrypt on your end. And so it's a really secure encrypted email. And that is the best way to communicate by email with your bank. It's encrypted. It's through on their system, so that nobody can just hack into your system. And I've noticed that more banks and financial companies are using systems like that. So yeah, at all costs, avoid transmitting that financial or health information via regular email or texts.
So Julia posted a question to me in the chat, and I guess this is one of those ripped from the headlines type of things. Earlier this week, there was the big outage at Facebook and the related services that they also own. I think it was WhatsApp and Instagram, and I'm not sure if it was anything else. So it was that, and we may not know the whole story yet, but was that likely from some sort of attack where was somebody trying to put some sort of worm or bug into the Facebook servers that would affect the billions of users? Any sense of what that was?
That was a very worrying issue when it happened. But since then, Facebook has said that it was a technical error, sort of a cascade of errors. So once one happened, it automatically triggered another error, triggered another, sort of like when lights around the neighborhood go out in a blackout. It just gets worse and worse and worse. That's what they're saying. I haven't seen anybody disputing that. So at least they're saying that that was a sort of back office technical error, which I won't pretend to understand exactly what happened.
Or maybe it was just to change the conversation from the testimony on
That was the same day the testimony was happening. And at first glance, it would have seemed like convenient, for when this damaging testimony was coming out, that someone else would take Facebook offline. But that rip from the headlines scenario appears not to have been the case.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, this actually, I'm glad you decided here, because I was about to ask you, what should we be doing?
Okay, so we've been discussing some of them in sort of an ad hoc way, but this really puts it in one slide. So use robust security software. So your software should be designed to block ransomware and keep your firewall updated. That means everything should, you should be able to block incoming spam and messages that are not appropriate, and ensure that things are being encrypted on your end. And these are, various products are available. and IT people, at your company or else consultants can tell you the best ones for your needs to use. Then the second one is just, so you want to back up your data. That's important. So you want to make sure that your data is backed up in the cloud also, so that it's just not on your, it doesn't do much if it's on your system and your system's taken out of control, offline. So you want to make sure that all your records, all your data is backed up in the cloud somewhere. I would also recommend making sure that it's backed up somewhere that is not attached at all to any device, so that it's on hard drives and that are put in a vault or safety deposit box or something like that, so that they're airlocked. Basically, they're not attached to the internet in any way, so no one can gain access to them. So if something should happen, you can easily get or not easily, but you can get your system back online. Security focused culture that talks about education for your employees, controlling access to your systems, Wi-Fi security, among other things. When you're on your laptop, that means not using the free Wi-Fi that's available at the airport or hotels. Those are great access points that cyber criminals will use to get into networks, or Starbucks. You can, a better way to do it, if you want to, is through, so on your iPhone or device, to use that local hotspot that you have. That will be more secure, not totally secure, but more secure than using that free Wi-Fi hotspot that's just in a public location. Multi-factor authorization simply means that, and you've probably encountered this, you log on to whatever application you're using, and they ask if they can send a password or a verification code to your device or email or phone, and you say fine, they send you the code and you enter that. That is more secure than a password. And there's actually, I was reading something today or yesterday that Google is going to start making use of that over passwords in the future, just because it is more secure. It is a pain because you can't, you're used to just signing in right away, and you do have to wait for this email or text to come, but it is much more secure. And then finally, investing in cybersecurity insurance. Amazingly, only 15% of US businesses have cyber insurance. Cyber insurance will, depending on the policy, will reimburse time that you are offline, damages that you may suffer as a result of an incursion, even damage to your brand that may be done. And lastly, cyber ransomware, ransom payments that you make. Now, not all of those may be covered, and especially ransomware payments may not be covered. And that is actually becoming a very controversial issue. At the moment, the government, the US government, is recommending that businesses not pay ransoms because it encourages other people to ask for ransom in other cases, and shows that it's effective and that businesses will pay. On the other hand, the government does realize that a ransomware attack can put a company out of business very quickly. So they're waffling a little bit. They're saying, well, if you really need to, it's not illegal. We don't recommend it. You can do it. What some bad actors have been doing, actually, when they break into the system, they have been accessing a company's cyberware insurance policies. So they know what your limit is in terms of cyber insurance, and they'll ask for that amount in the ransom because they'll know you can pay that amount. So it'd be interesting. I haven't heard anybody doing this, but it would be interesting to put in a fake policy with fake limits, so that they're considerably under what the actual limits are. But if you're organized to do that, enough to do that, you're probably organized enough to do some of these other things too. So
A company that paid the ransom recently with like Bitcoin, and somehow that company was able to claw back part of the ransom.
yeah, the big ransomware attack that took place over the summer with Colonial Pipeline, which limited gasoline supplies in a lot of a number of areas of the country. They paid a large ransomware ransom and in Bitcoin, and they usually are in Bitcoin because it's more difficult to trace those payments. The U.S. the law enforcement was able to claw back a lot of it. I have not seen a description of how they were able to do that. It would be interesting to find out, but I suppose there's a reason why that hasn't been made public. Yeah, in some cases they have been able to get it back, but it's happening with such frequency, these attacks, that you shouldn't count on getting the money back. Basically, if you pay it, hopefully it's covered by insurance, but you don't count on getting the money back. So let's go to the next. Oh, okay. So we were talking about legal and regulatory mandates. This is just a list of some of them. We won't go through all of them, but there are actually no federal laws that regulate cybersecurity, and as a result, laws have started springing up in certain states, such as California has the strictest. It's called COPA, the strictest policies regarding cybersecurity, but really those are only applicable to California residents, or only affect California residents. Virginia is enacting one, Colorado is, other states are coming online. Various industries have guidelines or regulations of their own. So the SEC has guidance. Interestingly, perhaps for some of the people listening or watching this podcast, is that if you're covered in New York State by the Department of Financial Services, you are obligated to abide by a certain, and I won't get it's just a number, New York code, and it's a really pretty detailed list of obligations that you have to adhere to, and that could and that does involve the mortgage companies, mortgage brokers. I'm not exactly sure who the DFS covers in that realm, but if you are covered and you don't know about it, you should quickly update yourself, because you may be liable for some penalties. Also, take a look at GDPR, which is the European Union's code, which is the most strict set of regulations that are out there at the moment. And that the reason I raised that is you don't have to be based in Europe to fall under GDPR. You could be gathering information from people who are in Europe. So even, for example, if you are asking, if you have a website and you're gathering names for a list or a blog, or you're gathering personal information, which could include names, email addresses, as simple as that. It's very widely drawn, the extent of what personal information is. It's not just medical information. You could fall under GDPR. And that institutes, and it requires you to institute a wide range of safeguards, can be very expensive. As a result, if you are a company and that you are getting responses from Europe, you might want to, if you don't need it, or it's not helpful to you, or if that's not even where you do any business, you're just gathering the information, you want to, might want to reconfigure your system so people cannot register from addresses that are in Europe. So therefore, you wouldn't fall under the parameters of GDPR. And the penalty for non-compliance with GDPR can be up to 20 million euros, or 4% of the annual revenues of your company, depending what is more. So small companies don't really have to worry about GDPR as much, but there are obligations that they have. So just be on the lookout for that. Okay, let's go to the, no, that was it. Okay. Oh, good timing.
Yeah,
so
out of time, but before I let you go, I want to know what is in the toolbox that you have to keep yourself safe online.
So I use, well, I'm constantly changing passwords. I am using passwords that aren't known or easily guessed by the general public, or people who might guess. The worst password you can use is password. The second worst password you can use is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are horrible passwords. I use two-factor authentication where I can. I don't open unsolicited emails. I don't answer phone calls to my mobile from numbers that I don't recognize. I certainly, I don't download anything that I'm not expecting because who knows what's there. I certainly don't respond to things that advertise prizes for, and it's amazing, even people who are fairly savvy in this type of stuff see an offer that they think might be too good to be true, and it is too good to be true. You can get a free prize or free trip or something like that. Don't engage, basically. So yeah, I trust no one, I guess. Unfortunately, is the good adage to live by when it comes to cybersecurity. It's unfortunate, but that's the way things have become, and it's only going to get worse. Unfortunately, it's a very profitable way for actors to make money, and if you're fall victim to someone outside the U.S., say in Asia, Eastern Europe, wherever you are, those people are not going to go to jail. They are not going to be punished, and you are not going to get your money back. So really, the onus is on you to protect yourself, because no one else is in this regard. So on that cheery note, if you do take some of these precautions, it will go a long way to protecting yourself, because as burglars, they say about burglars, if your house is too difficult to break into, they don't want the challenge of breaking into your house or into your computer system these days. They want to make quick bucks, so they'll find someone who's not protected. In an ideal world, everybody should be protected, but in this world, you should look out and make sure that you are protected, so that at least your system won't be and your business won't be affected.
Yeah. All right, and if somebody wants to get in touch with you to discuss this further, or how to keep themselves safe online, they can reach you at
my email is gplatt@gordonplattlaw.com. My telephone is 917-710-2747. If I don't know you and you call, I won't answer you, but you can leave a voicemail, or if you want to text me, I will respond to that, as long as you don't offer me some sort of sweepstakes prize for doing so.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Gordon. This was really very interesting and helpful, and hopefully, we'll have, be able to keep somebody safe out there. Um,
Yeah, I hope so. If people, if you take measure of what they're doing, pay attention, and things should work out.
yeah, I was looking for our farewell slide.
And again, if people want to get the deck, they get in touch with you. They can get in touch with me, and we can just send it over, because we did go quickly through some of the slides if they just want to have it for reference, etc.
All right. Well, thank you again, and thank you to Julia for your help in setting this up, and thank you to everybody watching live and in the future. So, thank you again, and I think we need to.
So thanks again
All right. See you next
for
time. All
having me.
right. See you soon. Bye bye.